welcome to Poets in Montana. I'm Mark Gibbons, and I'm talking to poets, as you know, if you've been to this program before. And today we have Jennifer Finley with us. Jennifer is an old friend, and I haven't seen her in quite some time, so we're going to catch up on a visit here, and then she's going to read you a bunch of her poems, and she's a terrific poet. Jennifer was born up on the Flathead Reservation just north of Missoula. She's a member of the Salish Kootenai Confederated Salish and Kootenai tribes.
Yes.
Get my order right on that. And she has 3 children. She has done literally more things than I can probably list in the time that we have to talk. So let me just introduce Jennifer, and we'll go from there. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yeah, so how's it going?
Good. So I'm running for tribal council.
Yeah.
And the final election is on Saturday, so that's been keeping me pretty busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's terrific. And, you know, I mean, you have done so many different things. I think about that. When I found out you were running for tribal council, I thought, well, great. But you've done a lot of different things.
I have.
Your life has many twists and turns, and the beauty of it is just the fact that the way that you write as a poet. It's a very personal sort of poetry, and that is sort of a thread. Wherever you've been and what you've done, I think is chronicled in your poetry.
It is, and it's really weird because I feel like personally I'm extremely private and reserved, and then my writing is really out there. My writing is really I'm not like that personally. I don't. My writing is not reserved. I feel like my writing is brave and courageous and uninhibited.
Right.
And I'm very reserved, and I feel like more than anything in life, I'm more of a watcher of other people, an observer. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a lot of poets are probably like that. I feel like that myself.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like you're not going around telling your story to people, but then you are in print, right? I mean, it's like it's very revealing. The poems are.
It is, yeah.
But you know, I mean, that's kind of the poet's job in a way, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
I think.
I think so. I think there's a quote. I mean, I'm not. I can't. I don't know it exactly. I'm just paraphrasing it, but I think it's by Ursula Le Guin, and she said, "Artists are children who survived." Something like that. And I think about that a lot. I think those of us who are artists of any kind have been able to keep our creativity, our curiosity about the world, our awe of beauty, our truth. We've been able to keep that into adulthood.
Right.
And that's one of the things I think that makes us artists.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's really a smart observation. It is the child inside that is the artist.
Because I think we're all born that way. We're all born honest. And, you know, in teaching poetry to kids and teaching poetry to adults, the best poems come from kids. And a lot of times, you know, when people become adults, they don't want to feel embarrassed. They want to act smart. They want to be something other than what they are, unless they're artists.
Right.
And artists are the courageous ones, I think, in our society, because we're the ones who we are who we are. And sometimes we're like foolishly, madly, humiliatingly in love, and you know, all of those things that make us human. We're not afraid to put it out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still teaching kids, you know, in the schools because it's hard to stop, really. I mean, everything is the job would be easy to stop as far as the job aspect of showing up and doing the kind of thing and all that. But it is the kids that keeps you coming back, and the things that they'll come up with, because they're not afraid, as you say, they're not afraid, and that's really what it comes down to. I think is that we learn to be afraid the older we get and close down, and that's what I think makes art so important in a way, is that it is the way that we carry emotional intelligence or communication as a culture. in a
Yeah.
way, you know? I mean, it's because of poets reading their stuff out loud, or artists displaying their works, or putting it on a stage, or playing it in music or whatever, that, you know, does all that.
Yeah.
The heart of it all, which is really what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being
It is.
here, being alive. You know, your kids teach you that. How are your
Yeah.
kids?
They're good. They're good. My daughter's graduating from MSU in May. My son's graduating from SKC next year.
Cool.
So I took him out of Ronan High School and put him in SKC when he was 16.
All right.
Yeah, so he started college at 16, and it was one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, some kids are ready. They're really ready, you know?
Yeah, and unfortunately there's just so much, I don't know, institutional racism in the schools on the reservation for the most part. And it's really hard for, I think, Indian students to get treated fairly. And, I certainly felt like my kids were not treated well, and I didn't feel like they were safe. So I took them out.
Yeah, yeah. I understand what you're saying, because I was a teacher in the Ronan School District on the reservation years ago, and you know.
You were one of the good ones. And
I obviously observed exactly what what you just said
Yeah.
back then, as a white person coming in, like going, this is really strange. Anybody who's never been in a situation like that, it is really, it's an eye-opening experience. It's like, wow, this is a different situation. Yeah.
It is. And I think in every bad system, there are always good people.
Oh, totally.
Good people can be in a really bad system.
There were lots of great people up there
Yeah.
that I knew, and fellow teachers and friends and whatnot, and all kinds of people. But there was just that situation,
Yeah.
and that's what we're talking about when we talk about systemic racism. It's just built in, and it's kind of hardwired. And there's something. It seems, I don't know. Anyway, we don't need to get into, because we don't, what the hell do we know about all that kind of stuff? Anyway, we're just poets. It's like, I remember one time I'm sorry, when I digress, I was a truck driver, and I was delivering these big pieces of equipment. It was for that new Safeway store that they built now as a Fresh Market or something down on Broadway. And the parking lot wasn't finished, so it was all. And we had these flatbeds with these huge, big air conditioning units that would kind of go on the ceiling, and we had them all strapped down. We loaded them onto the flatbed out at the warehouse, and then I drove them in, and drove them into place. And then these guys are going to unstrap them, pick them up with forklifts, and and get them up supposedly on top of the building at some point. And so I'm standing there, and I'm looking at them, trying to figure out how to get these things off or whatever. And so, because I had just put them on before we went down there, right? Me and this other guy had just put these things on. I went over there to him, and I was going to give him a suggestion on on how to maybe pick that thing, because this is what we did when we put it on there or whatever, right? They're real top heavy, and they're huge and heavy. And he looked over at me, and he goes, "You're just a truck driver." I was like, okay. I just walked away, and that was it after that. Every time anybody ever asked me a question, I just say, I'm just a truck driver. It's like, well, whatever. So this might be footage we want to cut out of this damn thing. But anyway, so now let's just hear some poems. Where do you want to start? Do you have a plan to start with anything?
No, I don't. I'll start with my first book.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's funny, because I feel like, you mentioned that I've done a lot of different things. I feel like I'm just a poet who's done other stuff. Like, how I think of myself at the core of my being, the core of my identity, is a poet. I'm a poet who does other stuff. So,
Right.
I've been a newspaper editor. I've worked in social services. I've worked in economic development, been an English teacher, yoga teacher, worked in suicide prevention, and now I'm running for tribal council. So I've done
Right.
a lot of different things, and I think at the end of the day, I'm just a poet who does other stuff. I'm just a poet who cares about the world, and I'm a poet who cares about my community. I'm a poet who wants to make my community a better place in any way that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah. So, so my first book is What I Keep, and it was published when I was 25, and I was still a grad student, and I found out I won this national award, and they were publishing my book. So the poems that are in this book are some of the first poems that I ever wrote. And when I first started writing poetry, I didn't ever tell people I was a writer, and I didn't tell people I was a poet, because I felt like I wasn't a real writer. I wasn't a real poet. It was just something that I did at the fast food taco place in my spare time in spiral notebooks for hours on end.
Right.
And then once my book came out, I thought, I think I'm a real writer now.
Right.
That someone...
Validation.
It was validation, yeah. And I thought, wow, somebody who doesn't know me, who doesn't know anything about me, judged me solely based on the merit of my writing and thought my writing was good enough to win an award and put in a book.
Right.
So it changed how I thought about myself. And yeah, and then growing up on a reservation, you know, and experiencing the schools myself, you know, experiencing racism in, you know, the school that I went to, it was a huge shift for me to grow up in a place where, you know, everything around you tells you that you don't matter, that you have nothing important to say. And then a small press in New York says, you have so many important things to say, so many that we're publishing a book of your words.
Right.
Was huge.
Yeah, yeah.
For me.
Yeah. Oh,
especially as a 25-year-old.
That would be huge.
Yeah. So I'll read this poem called I Take My Home about my grandpa Mike. He smelled immovable like tree sap and sawdust. My grandpa smelled like a man. He was a boxer, fought in a war, had a crew cut, wore suspenders, lived on his homeland, his real homeland, where I grew up. I learned to speak English better than the people who told him that Salish was bad. People ask me why I'm not traditional, then look over my shoulder at my homeland like cake to be cut, divided, hoarded, eaten. At a Christmas party, I drank from a teacup with Santa's face, filled with eggnog and rum. A woman asked me why I drank, since alcohol had done so much harm to my people. Then she said she went to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and bought a tape of Indian flute music, and could I teach her my dances. Big hairy men used to take pictures of me at powwows when I danced. I was a little girl, so I smiled, not clenching my fists around my green shawl, posing for men who thought I was part of a vanishing race. But here I am like a heartbeat. I beat, I beat. I run and stop and look between the lines. My home is in me like the smell of a green pine needle broken in two, strong, fresh. My home is in me like the smell of cold lake water in my skin, my lungs, wherever I go. Wherever I go, my grandfather's hands, plum-colored and strong, are touching mine.
Very nice. Yeah,
Thanks.
That's beautiful. One of the things I noticed too in your writing when I was reading poems again, and because of all this that you've talked about in terms of, you know, growing up in the environment that you've grown up in, and just with what that poem just communicated, it seems almost like you almost at times have more in common with animals than you do certain kinds of human beings. Or I don't know if I'm saying that right, but
yeah, I felt that a lot. I felt that that oftentimes animals in the natural world have more humanity than most humans do. They have more goodness and humanity. And you know, there have been times in my life where I felt more love from the land and from nature than I felt from humans. Right. And that has sustained me in my life.
Yeah, I recognize that too. I think that's, very nice.
Thank you.
You have another one you want to read in there?
Sure, I'll read another one.
You know,
in
one of
here.
the things that struck me when I read this again was I was going to ask you, do you ever write in a form anymore? Our mutual friend Robert Lee loves form poems, and he's always writing in forms. And but I noticed you had both a sestina and a villanelle, and they're wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll share some of these other projects, but I did this CD called Heart of the Bitterroot.
Right.
And it's a CD of Salish women's stories, and Julie, my dear friend Julie Kajun, commissioned me to do all the writing on this.
Right.
And it contains the stories of Salish women, notable Salish women. So Joanne Big Crane is reading my words, but all the words on the CD are my words.
Nice.
And so there's a sestina and a villanelle on this project.
Are they're not the same ones from this book?
No.
Okay.
So they tell the stories of Salish women. And I'll read one of the pieces from this.
Okay.
And then in this book, this is a children's book that I did, also commissioned by Julie Kajun. I did all the writing on this, and it's Huckleberries, Buttercups, and Celebrations, and it tells the story of the Salish names for the months of the year and explains them. And every month is an Elizabethan sonnet.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and then, I do still write in form a lot, but I think lately I've just been writing in free verse. But I like form because, being influenced by one of my most influential writing mentors, Jim Simmerman, he taught me that your free verse should be so well crafted that people think it's a form. And that the poems that you write in a form, like a sestina, a sonnet, a villanelle, they should be so well crafted that nobody knows it's a form.
Exactly.
And so that's always my goal. And it's a challenge to myself to write sonnets and sestinas and villanelles, because it's a challenge to me that anyone can read it and not even know that it's a very strict form.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what struck me, I guess, about rereading the sestina in this book. Again, it was like, wow, what a wonderful journey of growing up, your childhood in a form which you don't recognize as a form when you hear it or read it out loud.
Yeah, and I think that Jim taught me that. He taught me how to improve my craft as a writer, to be able to do that.
That's hopefully what a good teacher will do.
Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. I haven't looked at some of these poems in a really long time. I'm going to read this. Oh, wait a minute. I know which one I'll read. Dixon Bar. Because it's still, Dixon Bar is still there.
Yeah, at least it was last time I went up that way.
Let's see. Sorry, it's taking me
When
a
was
second.
the last time you were in Dixon Bar?
It's been years, but it's still alive and well. Okay. Dixon Bar. Because some other famous poets have written poems
few.
about the
Yes,
Dixon Bar.
yes,
So when I was in high school, before I was even a poet, I saw them on the wall.
Right.
And I thought, someday I'm going to write my own Dixon Bar poem. So here's my Dixon Bar poem. Outside Dixon Bar, next to the snake narrow, dry, cracked highway, which is returning to dust, a young girl with smooth brown skin and hair black like water from the river, just beyond the highway, sits in a messy car, shivering, with her grandmother who is drunk, and asking for a warm hamburger with tomatoes from Joanne, the red-headed bartender. The girl exits the car covered in cool moonlight, surrounded by the smell of moving water and the sound of chirping crickets. She enters the bar, passing the woman playing the Keno machine next to the door, finds her parents leaning against the bar with their elbows and says, "Grandma wants a hamburger deluxe." The girl waits while the smell of meat sizzling on the grill makes everybody else hungry, and reads a sign that says Drunk of the Week and has some white man's name beneath it. The girl uses the restroom with light green paint on the walls with a sign on the outside of the door that says Holsters. The girl exits the bathroom and finds the hamburger sitting on the bar, wrapped in white paper and ready to go. She brings it to her grandmother, who silently unwraps a crescent moon-shaped hamburger deluxe and gasps, "Someone took a bite." Well, that's my Dixon bar poem.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, a little different than the ones on the wall you read.
Yeah.
Perspective of a child who's sitting outside of the bar while her parents are inside with grandma, who's finally hungry. That's great. Great detail. So, is there another one you out of that collection that you're thinking of, or
Out of this collection, let me see. I'll read a poem about New Mexico because that was really important to me.
you went to undergraduate school in Arizona, right?
New Mexico.
In New Mexico. And you went
Yeah.
to graduate school in Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Summer in New Mexico. When I drive our dusty car, holding the steering wheel with both hands, listening to the radio, you comb my hair with your fingers, and I feel rich. One summer when I didn't have a job, I planted gourds in our backyard near the white wooden fence where the soil is rich. When it was hot at night, we sat on the concrete steps in front of our house and ate pink watermelon with our hands and spit black shiny seeds into the grass. Once, we swam across a lake in New Mexico surrounded by cliffs and watched bright red minnows hover beneath the surface of water. I like your hairy face and the sounds of the bottoms of your toes pressing across a carpet when you come to me. When we walk together on sidewalks when the sun is setting glowing orange, we say nothing, and I swallow the smell of your lips. I come to you like rain, touching your back, your nose, your neck. My mouth is rich with your taste.
Nice.
Thanks.
You do a good job with love poems.
It seems to be the kiss of death every time I write one for someone. It's like, okay, that relationship's over now. But it's in a book.
Yeah. It's a great poem. And it puts us right there in that experience. It's very sensual. It's very, both the natural and the human sort of things. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Thanks. You have better luck with love poems. You're still with the subject of
Well,
yours.
I mean, I don't write that many, obviously. Pardon me. Drop my stuff here. So, I thought I would ask you to read a couple of poems.
Okay.
And, you know, I lost my place. Well, that was your first book, and so the second book
The second book was
What Lasts.
What Lasts.
What I Keep was the first book,
Yeah.
and the second book is What Lasts, and that's at Foothills. That's still in print, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, what about Our Time?
Our Time. Okay. Okay. Okay, Our Time. In my early 20s, I squandered time. I stayed up late and read used novels with cracked covers on most nights before I fell asleep. I meandered slowly through dusty pawn shops and bought used spoons and made small talk with men who had overgrown haircuts and curvaceous Adam's apples. I went to Taco Box and drank Big Juans and ate frijoles burritos while I wrote letters and poems in spiral notebooks, and I licked envelopes slowly. Most days I ran miles at the track. Then I'd lay in the grass while the sun shined through my eyelids. As the years went by, time started to feel like a flooded river, tearing houses from the shore. I felt easily swept away and drowned out by the noise of driving and working and raising children. But there are beautiful islands in the middle of the wild rivers of my days. When my children sleep, their eyelashes are still like the wings of butterflies, shiny and iridescent in the moonlight.
Ah, that's sweet. Yeah, I like that poem, and it reminded me of, we were just talking about your life and the busyness of it, and the way that we fill our lives up with being busy and doing things and whatnot, children and work, but the poet is always there. That observer is always there, and it was much more prominent in our youth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had more time, and we remember those experiences, I think, but you almost force them into being the older we get. We kind of force our. I insist to myself that I write poems, when I can, and. Yeah, I like that about that poem. It puts me into the present, forces me back into, maybe I should write a poem. Yeah. And you have another one? That,
sure, I'll read another one from this. I will read Remember. Okay. What unknown inherited tendencies appear in the way we shake dirt from the roots of a weed or grab a clean spoon? All my kids have their father's hands, who are just like his grandmother Mildred's hands. Who knows how far back those hands reach, or who was the first to have them? One of my sons has ears just like mine. How far back can you go? How long do mutations last? A long time ago, an Indian saved a pack of pilgrims. Once the Puritans had Thanksgiving with the Wampanoags, and after they had enough pumpkins to survive, they murdered a chief and sent his wife and son off as slaves. In the name of God, they kept coming, litters of them. As bad as it was, the Puritans didn't commit the first terrorist attacks on American soil. These immigrants believed the devil walked around New England among wintergreen berries, wild turkeys, and orange leaves curled on the ground like dehydrated severed hands clawing the dirt for buried roots. Yes, the pilgrims knew all about the devil's temptations, tricks, and seductions. They never missed a sermon. The Puritans believed in the power of God. Hallelujah. Stiff as unlit candles, they pushed their hands quietly together, keeping their palms in the dark when their bodies weren't busy with work. Once, the Pilgrims murdered over 20 Indians while they slept. No child or mother would have been able to sleep through a commotion like that. Afterwards, a Dutch woman kicked their severed heads down the street. The Pilgrims did not seek permission from the Wampanoags or Pequots to live in their land. The Pilgrims weren't the first immigrants to cross a watery border looking for a new life. I've been to Aquina, where the Wampanoags still live. I've dipped my 2-year-old son's feet into the same ocean off the shores where Wampanoag men once made arrowheads. When I was 20, I held my lover's hand beneath the water, and as we stood in the ocean, I knew the ocean drank dead bodies, pirate treasures, and wampum. What else does the ocean remember? How much of the past is stored in the softness of my son's ear?
Nice.
Thank you. I'll read Homeland from this book too.
Yeah.
So, or not Homeland, Related. When I lived in New Mexico, the dark brown arms of a man at the grocery store reached back and forth and dropped coins in my hands at the cash register. I stood in line with my bags of tomatoes and bananas. He said, "Do I know you?" And I thought, yes, maybe. Maybe the blood in your fingers came from someone in Mexico who never spoke Spanish. Maybe your blood came from someone who fought conquistadors with bare hands. Maybe we have ancestors who traded blue feathers for brown feathers. Maybe our ancestors traded stories, or touched hands or mouths. We are both the survivors of survivors, and we are still here. I have ancestors who only dreamed in Salish words, and I do not see them in my dreams. Or maybe I do, but I don't recognize what I can't understand. I've had animal dreams and birds nearly fly into my head, and I wonder, does this mean anything, something? I don't know which parts of my history surface in my laugh, or surface in my nightmares, or surface in my fists. I never know what is truly mine. I have an ancestor from Scotland. I don't know if any piece of him has ever risen to the surface of my consciousness. One of my ancestors, named Sackwoman, learned how to deliver babies from a dream. She became a midwife who guided babies into the world with her bare hands. One day, my 4-year-old son, James, asked me where he lived when I was a little girl. I said he lived in my dreams, and we have always been together, and I have always loved him. Maybe we all once lived in somebody's dreams, and we have always been together.
Yeah, that's a beautiful poem. I remember that poem from the past. You know, that's one of my favorite poems.
Thank
and
you.
it goes to that connection that we talked about earlier, that, and time. You know, I mean, and the fact that my oldest son, is working on a molecular level now, and so, and that kind of has re-involved my psyche in this whole process of the molecular situation that we all exist in, but we navigate it through these human entities. Yeah, we all have a lot in common, probably.
Yeah.
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 Well, that's a beautiful book.
Thank you.
And I have a request in the next book, but whatever you feel like doing. Did you want to do something from the Bitterroots?
Yeah, I'll read a
Heart of the
piece
Bitterroot?
from Heart of the Bitterroot. So I'm at an age now where I need reading glasses.
It happens.
Oh my God. So I'll do my best to read it without. Okay.
Fine print.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Be like those kids I tell when they're reading poetry, don't put your paper up here when you're reading your poetry.
Okay. So this poem is called Quillix, a Warrior, and Quillix was one of our fiercest warriors in our tribe, and of course a woman. And so when Julie asked me to write this piece, she said, write this piece, or write all of these pieces. She said, just write it in a way, she said, do whatever you do. But so she gave me the historical research that she did, and she said, do whatever you do, just to do whatever you need to do to make these stories come alive. And so I decided to write all the stories of the women from a first-person perspective. Okay. And this was a really hard one to write because she killed people, and I thought, what would make a woman she was known for her kindness. What would make a kind woman kill people? And I thought love would, that she loved her people so fiercely that if anybody threatened them, she would put her life on the line for them and kill people to protect them.
Right.
And that when she was too old to be a warrior, she spent the rest of her life caring for sick people who couldn't care for themselves. So she just lived her whole life full of love for her people.
Right.
And
when did she live? Do it roughly, or?
Let me see. So it looks like there was a description of her in 1872.
Okay.
So one of the descriptions of her was that a group of Crow warriors, so in any battle that she was in, the enemy lost. No one could ever defeat her. Okay. And so there's a story of her, and a group of Crow warriors sees her and they run away. And she said, I thought you were men.
That was like a flash in a TV series or something. It was like, yeah, great.
So this is Quillix, a warrior. They call me Quillix. My dresses aren't red, but I like the color of fire smoldering inside sticks. I like the color of fire inside smoldering sticks. And I like the color of autumn leaves. Some people call me a warrior and honor me, wait for me, and fear me. But I am a servant, and I have killed other women's sons because I will do what's best for my people, my family, even if it's unpleasant. No woman raises her son to die. I don't like to attack or kill, and I am not without fear. I have always been a woman, and I refuse to fight and cripple my spirit. I have always known I can't protect others if I don't protect myself first. As a little girl, I stood up for myself, and I wasn't afraid of my own opinions. I had to see myself with my own eyes and not through the eyes of people who thought I laughed too loud. I wasn't afraid to be smart and strong-willed. I am not without fear. I would have married if I found a man who didn't expect me to give every part of myself to him. I had to listen to myself first. I have taken care of sick people who smelled of death, who were weak and frantic with fear. I held their hands and listened to their last words and did everything I could to ease their suffering. In battles, I stopped to take care of the wounded. I saved everybody I could. My hands have killed men. In battle, men surrendered when they saw me coming because I was fighting for something bigger than myself. In my prayers, I pray for my people, and I pray for the weak, and I thank the sky, the dirt, the rain. I am not afraid to listen to myself. People may not remember the look of my face, but I want you women to bravely accept your own strength and never fear being smart and beautiful.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Was it difficult to identify with this character? I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be smart, but I mean, how about the other ones that you wrote for it? Was this more? Did you feel more connected to this character at all?
They were all really hard to write because they all of the women in the stories on this CD had to make really hard choices and really painful choices, and it made me cry. It was a very emotional experience, and I felt like writing these pieces felt like a form of channeling, like I connected to some part of these women who had to make really impossible choices.
Right.
And
all we can do is bring ourselves to it. You know, in trying to do that, I mean, you can't help, you can't leave yourself behind. You know,
no, it was upsetting. It was upsetting to think about how would I feel if I had to make that choice, or if I was in that situation, what would make me kill someone? What would make me, you know, and some of the other stories, and putting myself in that place, it was a hard place to go. Right.
It's the kind of thing that actors do too, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, writers and actors, for sure. That's a good poem.
Thanks. So there's one from that, and then I'll read some from this.
Sure.
Okay. My hands have vertigo. And did you want me to read anything particular?
Well, I did, you know, just because of the connection. I mean, I met and knew Jim Zimmerman, but I was very, very connected to his poems. His poems were just so incredibly powerful and strong. They just blew me away. It was like really powerful stuff, I thought. And so the poem Still in this book, I was going to ask you to read that if you weren't going to.
Okay, yeah, I will read that. And yeah, I don't usually tell people that is about Jim, but yeah, it is about Jim. And he was my instructor. And I was a young woman, I was a student, and I had a crush on Jim.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a very attractive person to me. in so many different ways. And I just admired his writing. I admired him as a teacher, and
Well, I mean, part of, again, it's like what you talked about before.
Yeah.
It's a all of a sudden, because you're reading the poem and we're doing it in a kind of a halfway public fashion, you become self-conscious of the fact that a lot of it is biographical. But it's just a wonderful poem, and that's what we do, is we try to give an honest appraisal of human experience, because this is the way human beings are. Right?
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful poem.
Thank you. Okay. So, I still wonder if I would have been brave enough to let you slide your hand up my skirt. If you had been brave enough to try it, I wanted you to. You looked at my brown, bare legs, but never touched me. I was so young then. I was afraid of my own brambled wildness. I was an overgrown jungle temple where wild prayers blossomed like pink flowers in my hair. I'm finally ready for you. I untethered myself from those who can't love me. I ripped my arms free from old promises. I burned away the dead growth. I'm alone in a green clearing beneath breathing stars. There is space in my poems for you, but you're no longer here. I want to scream fuck until I'm hoarse. I want to cry until I'm dehydrated. You killed yourself and took your voice away from this world. I will never know the taste of your fingers. No town on this earth is better off without you. No airport, wooden picnic table, or ice cream parlor will know us as a couple. Alone, I walked alongside an ancestral river in Missoula. Her voice reaches out to me like a mother who wants to protect me. She sings this in my ear. You must let go of all that cannot be. God will never take away everything that loves you.
Beautiful ending.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I just love the description, the imagining, of a young person, and then the aftermath of someone that you were in love with as a young person, and then has disappeared. By the time you yearn for that connection that you felt, anyway, it's just I'm sorry.
And Jim never knew I felt that way about
Exactly.
him.
Yeah. I mean,
so
I
it was
remember
just
you
kind of
telling me that. It was
yeah.
just one of those missed sort of things that
Yeah.
happens to us in life. And
Yeah.
everybody has those experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe not with wonderful poets that Jim Zimmerman was. He was a great poet.
He was.
God, he was a
yeah.
great poet, and he was
Yeah.
just, but I mean, depression is a dangerous thing. I mean, and isolation compounds all that, I guess. And
Yeah.
sometimes people just have to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know how long we've been at this, but let's go for a couple more if you've got them in you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll read a couple more poems from this book. Let's see. I'll read Child for my kids, Alexa, James, and Johnny. I would give up my language for you. I would learn new words for turtle, shoelace, and wet snow. For you, I would give up my country, my homeland. As you lie in bed under soft blankets, do you know how much you matter to me? I have not been so lucky in matters of love. I was born into a blizzard of sadness that at times I've struggled to crawl away from with blood on my hands and my mouth. There are strings of days where it takes all my breath to stand, but each morning before I rise to face what I must face, I pray for each of you by name. May each of you know how beautiful you are, even if nobody is there to tell you so. May each of you know how precious you are, even in moments of rejection and disappointment. I am sorry, but my love will not be enough to protect you from those who may not love you back. Child. Know this, love is magic. It can rise from nothing. I am humble and small, but I can give you something as fine and noble as love. Let's see. All right, I'll read Hawaiian and Salish. Like if I put it far enough away, I can see it. Hawaiian and Salish. Hawaiian. You are made of orange flowers and the smell of salt water. You are made of songs filled with mist and hands that know how to dance. You are made of rainbows and rain that beats with a faithful heart. You are made of land that's fit for the kings, warriors, and queens you have always been and will always be. You are made of ocean magic and stars that will always sing you the way home. You are made of lava from the core of all that is, and all that has the courage to reach for the sun's love. Salish. We are made of long dark winters and cold times that taught us how to weave stories and pray. We are made of deer leaping through snow and mountain lions quietly breathing and walking in the woods. Our hands are made of purple mountain flowers and earth medicine that will never leave us. We are made of the smell of fresh water, pine needles, and handfuls of wet river stones. We are made of coyote story mischief and animals that come to us when we need them. We are made of magic, dreams, and love songs that flicker in our hair like butterflies landing on wet leaves. Together we are beautiful and strong. The same stars watch over and guide both of us. How could we doubt our beauty when we look at our mountains or swim in our waters? How could we doubt our strength when snow and ocean tides are stronger than anyone who doesn't love us? When we hear wind sing through our trees, how could we forget how much we are meant to be here? We are these waters. We are these lands. We are still here. We are together. We are connected by the stars. We are connected by love.
Nice.
Thanks.
Is there anything prompt that particular poem? The Hawaiian connection? Or?
Yeah, actually with Julie, we had done some work in Hawaii.
Okay.
And so we did some work with some indigenous Hawaiians.
Oh, cool. So
So,
you were over
yeah.
there for a while. And
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have. Yeah,
yeah.
I have been there.
yeah, I've never been there, but that's a nice poem.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want me to read one more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'll read Step into the Light. Every good story that flies into my heart reminds me of what I really know. I pray these stories are like a bluebird or a purple flower or some other piece of beauty that flies in your path when you least expect it. I pray each of these stories reminds you that your voice is meant to be loved. Today, be a rainstorm of dances. Sing your way back to yourself. Your spirit is here right now. There is always more to life than you know. Every part of me that loves to laugh, sing, and dance is here right now. And I am strong because I accept my strength like the earth accepts rain. Today, the blessings run like rivers through all of us. I'm sorry for all the times your heart's been broken, but your heart still believes in love, even if you don't. Your heart still needs love as much as it always has. If I could hold each of you, I would. Sometimes you must find a way to see your own goodness because that's what holds you. Your heart is braver than you know. No matter what we have not done or did not say, there is hope for all of us. We must stop defining ourselves by those who did not love us. Do not let people who don't love you decide how much you're worth. Do not let the people who think you're invisible decide which parts of yourself you see. Step into the light, no matter how much darkness there's been. You have always been worth fighting for. You have always been worth standing up for. You have always been worth dancing for. You have always been worth singing for. Today, start singing back your beauty. Stand up for yourself. Don't fight your doubts, just let them walk away. Get up and dance for yourself. Dance for all that is good. Dance for who you really are. Because you're still here, and I believe in all of you. I believe in all of us. The real you is still here. Your spirit has always been faithful to you. Your spirit is still by your side, waiting for you to ask it to dance.
Nice.
Thanks.
So much of your work is an affirmation and a sort of an anthem to love. I mean, and that's really strong, sort of mother medicine of sorts. I mean, it's really it reminds me of my mother, and it's a woman sort of thing. That thank you for sharing with us,
Yeah.
and it reminds me of exactly why I wanted to do this kind of a thing too, was because your voice, reading your own poems, it's a very soothing sort of experience. You have a great voice with your poems. So
Thank you.
thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
this
thanks for
with us.
having me. Thanks for
I am
interviewing me.
Thrilled to see you again.
Yeah.
Maybe we can go get lunch.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, Jennifer Finley. What was the title of the last book again, Jennifer?
This is My Hands Have Vertigo.
Yeah.
My Hands Have
Jennifer
Vertigo.
Finley. Thanks for joining us. See you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Got a lifetime filled